In 2017, Spain's Catalonia region was racked by mass protests and a breakdown in relations between the local and national governments after the region's parliament declared Catalan independence. Spain's constitutional court later ruled this action illegal under the Spanish constitution. But with Spain's government now dependent on the votes of Catalan separatists to govern, the issue has far from gone away. So what would happen if Catalonia was to break away and form an independent state? Spain is a diverse country made up of 17 autonomous communities. Many have their own distinct cultures, languages, and histories. Catalonia is one of the most well-known of these communities, occupying the northeastern corner of Spain. The reasons why some people in Catalonia want their region to become an independent state are numerous, and deserve a video in their own right. However, broadly speaking, Catalonia has enjoyed varying degrees of autonomy in the past. Catalonia has its own distinct and widely used language, Catalan, and imbalances in the wealth of different regions of Spain and how taxes are redistributed have created resentments between wealthier communities and the central government in Madrid. Let's first assume that only the existing autonomous community known as Catalonia, and where there are mainstream groups advocating independence, breaks away. This leaves behind as part of Spain those regions like Valencia and the Balearic Islands where Catalan is also spoken, although much less prominently. As a result, we're left with a country bordering France, Andorra, and of course Spain, made up of just over 12,000 square miles of territory and with a population of 7.5 million people. The capital of Catalonia would almost certainly be Barcelona, where the region's existing major institutions and businesses are based. Barcelona would be the 13th largest capital city by population in Europe. Overall, Catalonia would be the 34th largest state by territory and the 23rd biggest by population on the continent. The European Union, which Spain is a member of, officially takes an anti-independent stance regarding its member states. It claims that any territory breaking away would automatically cease to be an EU member upon independence and would have to reapply to join the Union. However, as no EU member has ever seen a part of its territory successfully become independent, it's hard to know what would happen in practice. Assuming Catalonia remains a member of the EU, it would be the 23rd largest state by territory, a little bit bigger than Belgium and the 16th biggest member by population, sandwiched in between Bulgaria and Denmark. Under the existing laws that govern Catalonia as part of Spain, the region already has a number of institutions that it would need to be an independent state. These include its own parliament, local government, local court system, and certain powers over things like policing, taxation, the maintenance of roads, and social welfare. In many ways, Catalonia is therefore already well placed to become an independent state. Independence would likely be somewhat of a mixed bag for Catalonia's economy. In terms of positives, Catalonia already has a large number of products it currently exports around the world. These account for €71 billion worth of trade each year. That's around 25% of Spain's total exports. Catalonia has access to the sea for cargo, with Europe's 9th busiest port in Barcelona. And it has its own stable supply of water thanks to a series of desalination plants built over a decade ago, following a drought where Catalonia was forced to import water from elsewhere in Spain. However, independence would undoubtedly throw up some challenges. The legal chaos that followed the attempt to break away in 2017 caused a number of businesses in Catalonia to relocate to elsewhere in Spain. Another chaotic move to independence would cause further instability, and even under a smooth transition, would likely see many Spanish companies leave or reduce operations in Catalonia to ensure that they could still operate in the Spanish market. Like any new state, Catalonia would need to spend a considerable amount of money on things it needs but doesn't yet have. These include setting up a diplomatic service, opening embassies in major countries, and it's likely it would want to set up some sort of army too. Catalonia's power grid is also integrated with the rest of Spain and a section of southern France. All three sides would therefore need to negotiate with one another to maintain a smooth electricity supply in their countries. This, of course, would give Spain a high degree of leverage in any independence negotiations. Provided, however, an independent Catalonia could largely maintain its existing prosperity, it would be a fairly wealthy nation. With a GDP of $343 billion, similar to that of Qatar and Ireland, and a per capita GDP of around $46,000, between that of Bahrain and the UK. It's difficult to hypothesize about what a Catalonian military could look like. However, we should assume that this army would have to be largely built up from scratch, with Spain keeping its existing hardware and most of its troops. There would likely be questions over whether Catalonia genuinely needed a traditional army, given it would be surrounded by long-established democracies, and, aside from likely ongoing tensions with Spain, would have no obvious enemies. However, assuming Catalonia did create its own military, then looking at similar-sized countries, it could have anywhere in the region between Bulgaria's 31,000 and Denmark's 12,500 active troops. According to a 2018 report, 94% of the population of Catalonia can speak or understand Catalan. That's compared to 99% of the population who can speak Spanish. Whilst the ability to communicate in Catalan is increasing, particularly amongst younger people, Spanish still dominates in much of life. 37% of people in Catalonia only speak Spanish at home versus 27% who only speak Catalan. There's a similar bias towards Spanish language usage in banks and retail units, and only 7% of court rulings in the region are issued in Catalan. The only other nation-state with Catalan as a day-to-day language would be tiny Andorra, meaning that the language of most business and commerce in Catalonia would likely be Spanish for the foreseeable future. Therefore, perhaps ironically for a state trying to break away from Spain, Spanish would almost certainly have to remain one of the official languages of Catalonia, likely enjoying dual status with Catalan. According to data from 2019, Catalonia is the least religious of all the current autonomous communities of Spain, with just 54% of the population declaring themselves Catholic and 41% declaring themselves either atheist or agnostic. Furthermore, Catalonia's laws around cannabis cultivation and consumption are amongst the most progressive in Spain, and there are hundreds of so-called cannabis clubs in Barcelona. Despite Spain having a largely Catholic population, abortion is already legal throughout the country, alongside gay marriage, which was legalized in 2004. It's unlikely, therefore, that we'd see any serious attempt to repeal either of these changes. If Catalonia were to break away from Spain, it would likely take with it all of the sports teams based in the region, including one of the most famous and successful football teams in the world, FC Barcelona. It's likely Barcelona would dominate any new Catalan football league. However, the gap between them and the rest of the teams in such a competition would be huge. With only one other Catalan team in the Spanish top division at the start of 2020 and one in the second tier, a new Catalan football league would need to look to the third tier of Spanish football for additional clubs to even make up a small league of 12 teams. It's questionable though how much international interest there would be in seeing Barcelona regularly take on teams like Badalona and Olot, whose stadiums can hold less than 6,000 fans. With reduced income from TV rights, a lower standard of competition, and no El Clasico matches against rivals Real Madrid, independence for Catalonia could mean hard times for FC Barcelona. Things would be a little brighter for a Catalan national football team, which could in theory draw upon the talents of 4 out of the 23 players called up for Spain in late 2019. With a host of other well-known individuals playing in the top leagues of Europe, a national Catalonia team would likely be fairly competitive in international football. Here's what a Catalan starting 11 could in theory look like. In summary, an independent Catalonia would likely be still relatively wealthy, facing a number of costs to create a presence on the international stage, still speaking a lot of Spanish, pretty socially liberal, and relatively competitive in international football. To put this video together, we've consulted numerous sources, and you can find those in the description below. Tell us what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more of the World Unpacked.